Hey, welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body. Hey, Christina, thank you very much for chiming into this podcast all the way out there from, is it California you're based?
Yeah, I am. I'm in San Diego, California. So thank you for having me.
Amazing. No problem. No problem. What's the climate like there at the moment?
Actually, well, it's been chilly for San Diego, but probably still hot for people who live in real weather. But it's been breezy, like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Are you guys in Celsius?
Yeah. Well, that's right. We do Celsius. Yeah. But
Yeah, I don't know what it is in Celsius.
no, I have no idea on Fahrenheit either, so we'll forget about the weather question. But no, we're in. Obviously, I'm based in Sydney, Australia, so it's like a 19-hour time difference right now, and it's the summer here, so it's really nice weather. So, anyways, yeah, I was just gonna crack straight into it, and if you could give the listeners more details on your story and kind of what took you down the path that you've basically your journey and where you're at now, really.
Sure, I'll try and give the Spark Notes version. So I grew up and I had a lot of digestive issues. I didn't really know that they were abnormal. I thought everybody felt like that. And I also struggled a lot with anxiety and depression growing up, and got a really bad case of mono Epstein-Barr virus when I was at the end of high school, and then went into college with that. And then in college, my depression and anxiety just got even worse, and I kind of fell into a binge eating disorder. After that, I just felt just really unhappy with my whole life and wanted to turn things around. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to stop binging. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do all these things that I've never tried to do before. I didn't know what being healthy meant, I didn't know how to work out. I didn't know how to eat a healthy meal. So I started diving into nutrition and fitness and kind of taking all the conventional advice. And at this time, I also decided to start trying to figure out what was at the root of my digestive issues, because I had realized by this point that no one else, some other people were, but that my digestive problems were not normal. I was dealing with a lot of bloating and constipation and just severe pain after I would eat most things. Shortly after that, I started to feel a lot better because I had cleaned up my diet a lot. I was working out, but still not really getting to the root of my digestive problems. And then I went on vacation and had a meal that sort of set me off. Like it's a trigger episode. And for about a week after that, I was just violently ill, and I had never been this ill in my whole life. And it was kind of after that my digestion really just stopped working. And I started slowly losing a lot of weight, and I was at the same time as I was still getting healthier. I became really obsessed with working out and eating clean, and my body just wasn't absorbing anything I was eating. So I was losing weight pretty quickly, and I started seeing a ton of different specialists, different nutritionists, but a lot of GIs, rheumatologists, endocrinologists, sports medicine experts, just all different types of experts I could get my hands on. And no one could really figure out what was going on with me. Eventually, my acupuncturist actually found out that I had a candida overgrowth. We figured out that was sort of one big thing causing me issues, but after I cleared that up, I was still struggling a lot. I dropped a lot of weight very quickly. So within about 3 months, I had gone from 120 pounds to 73 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, it was pretty scary. And kind of during that whole time, emotionally, I went through, at the beginning, I didn't really recognize that I was losing so much weight, and I didn't really realize it was an issue. I had really bad body dysmorphia. And then it also kind of turned into some orthorexia, where I was just afraid of eating anything that wasn't, quote, clean enough, because I had by this point figured out how much certain foods were really, really hurting my body. Like I had figured out which foods would cause me severe pain. Slash, I felt like my whole life was kind of out of control, and I was obsessed with exercising because I felt like that was the one thing that I could control and the one thing that relieved my stress, I would say. Everything kind of spiraled out of control, and then I realized as I was losing so much weight, like, okay, I need to stop. I had to stop working out and add in more things into my diet. So then I kind of made that mental switch, but even despite making those changes and like consciously making an effort to eat a lot of food and be as inactive as possible, I was still dropping weight, which really scared me. And again, I ended up having to drop. I was in college at the time. I ended up having to drop out of college, because I just was spending so much time at the doctor's office. I was taking all of these random tests after test, different doctors. I was having an issue because a lot of doctors didn't believe me, and they just said I was anorexic and not eating, and I would have to bring people to vouch for me that I was eating food, and no one really understood. And then so during this whole time, I just decided to dive into the research for myself and learned a lot more about nutrition and gut health and how our guts can the health of our gut can affect our overall health. And finally, I went paleo and changed things in my lifestyle, and I was finally able to start putting weight back on. And then it was kind of like a healing journey from there. Eventually, I found a functional medicine doctor who was able to run some more tests, and I found out I had SIBO. Later, found out I had parasites, thyroid things, heavy metals toxicity. So I eventually figured out kind of what was at the root of it, but it took a long time. And just through that whole experience of I had to really be my own health advocate and had to do a lot of the research myself, and decided that I just didn't want anybody else to be in the same situation that I was in. That's why I decided to become a health coach and then a nutritional therapy practitioner. And now I like to help people figure out their own health issues and use diet and lifestyle and supplements to kind of naturally overcome their health issues and reach their health goals. And then that's also why I started my podcast, to sort of share the information I was learning with other people, because I just didn't want anyone else to feel. I felt very lonely when I was going through all of that, and I felt really like no one could help me and no one was helping me, is how I felt at the time. And I just didn't want anyone else to feel like that. So that's kind of how I reached where I am today.
That's amazing. It's amazing that you've used your suffering to reach out and help other people. And I first found out about you through Mind Pump Media. So I know you featured on
I love them.
Those guys are legends. So I've said it time and time again on other episodes, but those guys kind of inspired me to start my own podcast and completely change my paradigm. Much like yourself, really, you had to learn yourself and do research. Well, actually listening to the Mind Pump podcast helped me learn so much about, taking a holistic approach and stuff. And I was just going to ask you then, can you just give it just a tiny bit more detail on what you changed with your diet? Because you said you changed over to a paleo way of eating. I have explained to the listeners what that is before, but if you could just explain to them like what you changed and what the paleo diet is in short, if possible.
Yeah, well, it was funny because it wasn't like I wasn't eating that far off from a paleo diet to begin with, but a paleo diet is basically just all things whole food. So it's basically a diet centered around vegetables, fruit, healthy proteins, animal products, meat, eggs, fish, and healthy fats, avocados, nuts, seeds. So you're removing grains, legumes, sugar, alcohol, corn, soy, basically the inflammatory foods. And before that, I was eating very similar to that. Like my diet was mostly, vegetables and proteins, but is very much more like bodybuilder style. Like I didn't really realize at the time the mistakes I was making with nutrition, because when I first started trying to get healthy, I was kind of just going off of bodybuilding.com, and I was eating like lean protein and non-starchy veggies, which I mean, I dropped a ton of weight at the beginning, and I felt great at first because that was a huge transformation from my diet originally, which like growing up and at the beginning of college, I was eating very much just your standard diet of like pizza, sandwiches, cupcakes, and cookies.
Most people
So
would love. Most
obviously,
people listening to this would love that diet if they could get away with
yeah, so
it.
that was a huge improvement. But I was also, I was eating like brown rice and quinoa, lentils, things like that.
Mm.
And especially when kind of what happened was when I found out I had the candida overgrowth and had to heal from that, I had to go on an anti-candida protocol. And part of that protocol is you get some antifungal. So if anybody doesn't know, so candida is this yeast that is you can find in the intestine, and it should be there, but when it's overgrown, it can cause a variety of symptoms. Bloating, constipation, diarrhea, brain fog, acne, all of these types of things. So when I was treating that, you go on antifungal supplements, and then you also have to do the candida diet, which is a no sugar diet, which means any type of sugars, but also no starches, no fruits, no vinegars, no ferments, anything like that. So it was very much just like lean, like proteins, and I did lean proteins when I should have been doing fatty proteins. And then non-starchy veggies, basically my diet. And then when I dropped so much weight, and then I started working with somebody afterwards to help like restore my weight, and I had become so afraid of anything with like any starch or fruit because I thought that it was going to bring my candida back. And so I had to start adding things in. So then I was purposefully adding in, like brown rice and quinoa and lentils and things like that. And it was so strange because it was literally just the shift from eating like that to actually removing those and just replacing those with like sweet potatoes and fruits and I don't know, taro and squashes, things like that. And just getting rid of the grains and the legumes for me allowed my gut to heal. And then when my gut was able to heal, I was able to finally like put on the weight I needed to get back to a normal healthy weight. So that was sort of the difference there, which I mean, it's funny because it's not that big of a difference, but some people are just more sensitive than others. And like my body is super sensitive. And for me, those grains and legumes at the time were just making it so my stomach couldn't heal. And it wasn't until I could heal my intestines that, I was able to kind of get better.
Interesting, because what we sometimes deem to be healthy foods, such as rice and grains and lentils and stuff, it's not always the case, is it? I don't know whether it's like lectins, and there's obviously certain types of proteins, and I think it's phytates, but who knows? But like everyone's so different in terms of their metabolism, and obviously there's so many variables from person to person. But I was just going to ask you, because you mentioned about depression earlier on. And another big driver behind this podcast is trying to reach out to people who are dealing with any mental health issues because, as you know, we're kind of facing an epidemic right now, and the current stats or the way it's going at the moment, they think by about 2020, in 2 years' time, it's going to be the leading disability in young adults. And I think it's about 1 in 4 people here in Australia will be affected by it at some point in their life, the way it's going currently based on the stats and stuff. But yeah, how did you actually, obviously there's several things which took place for you to overcome depression, but it's clear that there was something going on with your gut in terms of what you were eating. That was obviously playing a big part in it. But then obviously you started, maybe, I don't know, it sounds like, I'm pretty sure you said on the Mind Pump podcast that you kind of cut back a little bit on, you were exercising, but doing it more in a smart way. But yeah, if you can just tell the listeners, what it was you'd done primarily to overcome that, that would be great. I know you've just answered a lot of that then.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'm happy to talk about it because it's something
Thanks.
I am like super passionate about. And I struggled a lot, growing up, with the anxiety and the depression. And I really just never thought I was going to get out of it. I thought that was just the way I was, and I was going to have to live my life like that. And, it gets really dark. Like people if you struggle with clinical depression, dealing with, suicidal thoughts is not easy. And I tried lots of therapy. And I'm a big believer in therapy, but I don't think therapy alone was going to heal me. And for most people, I don't think it is. I tried antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. SSRIs were not working for me. And it wasn't really until I went on this path of trying to heal the physical symptoms that I also, during that process, was able to heal these psychological, mental issues that I was having, which was really great. And I think there are a few things for me that really stand out as having helped me. And so first, obviously, was like, obviously supporting my gut, which kind of just higher level there, like changing my diet was huge in that. So focusing on an anti-inflammatory diet, including plenty of healthy fats and healthy proteins in my diet to like produce the neurotransmitters and hormones necessary to make me feel good. You know, you got to get enough dopamine in there, enough GABA.
Absolutely. And it's
So
like 90,
diet
sorry to
said-
interrupt, I
yeah.
think there was like 95% of the serotonin receptors are like found in the gut or something like that. And sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so gut health, so just starting with diet in terms of that, and then removing all of the inflammatory foods, removing sugar and gluten, are two huge triggers for me. And, you know, now I'm really, really in touch with my body, and I know that there are certain foods that really trigger it for me. So I know if I eat certain foods, I'm going to feel depressed the next day. And so for me, foods like sugar and chocolate and gluten.
Sorry, when you say
I don't
sugar,
ever.
do you mean refined sugar, or do you mean like, because obviously there's like fructose found in fruit and stuff. Do you mean primarily like refined sugars, or do you mean just in general you went super low, or like literally reduced, minimize sugar altogether? Is it, or?
So in context of this, when I'm saying sugar, refined sugar.
Okay, cool.
But also I'm really sensitive, and if I have something, even if it's natural sugar, but like a lot of it,
Yep.
and it's all dose dependent for me too. It's like if I have like a bite of something with refined sugar, it's not gonna happen. But you know, if I'm having like a dessert, like I know it'll happen. And same with chocolate. Like if I have like a bite of chocolate, I'm all right. Like, and I'm talking just like straight 100% cacao. If I have like a decent amount, I know I will get depressed the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, so those, and I don't ever have gluten, because I can't consume gluten for
Yeah, same.
but I've gotten like gluten before, and that also is a huge symptom, one of many, you know, that comes up so for me, those are just a few of the food triggers, but in general, just focusing on a really healing diet, and then healing the gut in other ways. So like a really high quality probiotic, getting in that beneficial, those beneficial gut bugs, right? That's awesome for the gut, and just like really healing it. So, I mean, you know, I went through a whole leaky gut protocol, supporting it with like things like bone broth and collagen, glutamine. So just supporting your overall gut health is really key. And then also just lifestyle changes that I made. I think one of the biggest things, honestly, is taking walks outside every day. And it seems like so simple or so easy, but I notice a difference. Like if I don't go outside during like if there's a day that I don't go outside, which is rare now, I notice a huge difference in my mood. And now it's like I make it a priority to go outside and go on walks every day. Like I need to get some sunshine in. You need vitamin D. I mean, even just like nutrient deficiencies in general. Like if you're low in vitamin D, that could be a cause of your depression, or even being low in B vitamins, is another one. So like focusing on like honestly really any nutrient deficiency, being too low in omega-3 fatty acids is another one that can lead to poor like depression or anxiety symptoms. So yeah, those are just a few, but really any nutrient deficiencies can be causing those symptoms. So, but taking a walk is a really important one for me. And then also, yeah, exercising regularly is very important to me, but also I had to go through a time, like just in my journey, I had exercise addiction, and in the process of recovering from that, had to take a long time off of all exercise. And then I kind of slowly got back into it, and I started with just yoga. And then I did yoga for a while, and then kind of went back and eventually like found my groove again, but definitely couldn't go back to what I was doing before ever.
Yep.
So just getting regular exercise is huge. Like if I don't move during the day, I feel like a piece of crap. So getting movement in, making that a regular part of my life. And like sunlight, like I mentioned with the walking, but just getting in sun. And there are other like natural things that help me. Like I'm a huge fan of essential oils. And so I'll use essential oils, which as just like naturally,
what kind of oils? Do you mean like for the skin, or do you mean for like what do you mean by that? Sorry, the essential oils?
So yeah, so essential oils, so you can either diffuse them in a diffuser, so they're
Yeah, I
like
was thinking that.
diffused in the air, or you can apply them topically. So like lavender, for instance, is a great essential oil for anxiety or stress. So it's like every evening I diffuse lavender. I put it on the bottoms of my feet to help me sleep. I put some on my pillow. It just really helps me calm down. So something like that. Or if during the day I feel down or anxious, I'll use something like frankincense. Citrus oils are really uplifting, so great to just put you in a happy mood. So things like wild orange or lemon are really uplifting. So I like to use those as well. And then obviously therapy helped me a lot working through it. I mean, it's like I can talk about the things that I did in my life, but you have to get to what's bothering you, so there are also things that are upsetting me, right? And so working through those and making changes like I stopped hanging out with people who I didn't like, and I started to say no to things I didn't like, and I quit things that I didn't want to do. And I just started making decisions, sometimes that were hard, but basically just making a decision from what do I want to do, what's making me happy versus what do I feel obligated to do, and what do people expect of me. And just tuning into that. And for me, like, meditating, and I've since become a Reiki practitioner, and Reiki is a form of energy healing that has really helped me as well with my emotional health and working through things. But, going to therapy and journaling regularly have been game changers for me, just to brain dump and get things out and just no more holding anything inside. And kind of all of that working together, I feel like really helped me overcome those. And that's not to say I'm happy all the time and like I never get stressed out or I never get sad, but on a day-to-day basis, I feel like I'm a happy person, and I don't feel like depression. When you have like clinical depression or anxiety disorder, it just feels like this cloud that's always hanging over you, and like that's just always your default state. And I don't feel like that it's that anymore. Like it's uncommon for me to feel that way now, and that's not like that's not my core being anymore, so it's really a freeing feeling to be able to break away from that, but I also know that I have to maintain the way I live my life in order to maintain my mental health.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess based on what you're doing now, you've got a lot more purpose in your life now, because you're actually reaching out and you're probably taking a lot of enjoyment from actually adding value to the world and helping other people. So on that note, I was just going to say, obviously you mentioned about briefly about Western medicine, and it's kind of tricky right now because a lot of people, they'll go for help when they have obviously depression or any mental health ailments, and they'll get prescribed SSRIs. So I've mentioned to the listeners before, I had issues myself in like my early 20s for a couple of years. I was suffering with depression pretty bad, and I was just on the verge of actually taking SSRIs, but I didn't, and I'm quite thankful I didn't now. I managed to push through it eventually. But I was just going to say, in terms of like people you help and you do consult, I know you do like some one-to-one stuff online, if I'm right, in terms of helping people achieve better health goals, physique goals, wherever that is. But how do you actually, what is your approach? Because I know you take like a holistic approach, just like myself. And so how do you actually, in terms of the big rocks and actually helping people focus on the fundamental things to get momentum with their journey, how do you actually go about it? What's your initial approach to, so like a beginner, for example, to help them out? I know it's quite a broad question, but yeah, if that makes sense.
In terms of mental health specifically, or just in general?
Oh, just in general. I mean, just firstly, the people that come to you and ask you for help, is it generally is it for the most part people who want to get in shape mainly, or is is it like mental? Is it a combination of the both, or?
So I get a little bit of everything, but honestly, most people who are coming to me most people coming to me have gut health issues.
Ah,
So
okay.
most people coming to me are having bloating, constipation, diarrhea, pain, nausea, or, they've been diagnosed with some digestive disorder. Most people are coming to me with gut issues and or some type of disordered eating, whether that be a diagnosed eating disorder or just trying to change their relationship around food. And then, I do get some people who are just looking to clean up their diets or lose weight. That's in there too, but I would say the bulk of people I work with, it's gut health and their relationship with food.
That's great, because I've got some questions on that anyway, and I wanted to delve deeper into eating disorders and stuff, because I always speak out about, because you don't really get many men, aside from the Mind Pump guys actually, talking about about eating disorders and like how self-awareness is so important, really, because so many people, especially guys, are not actually aware that they actually have like a minor case of the binge eating disorder a lot of the times. And for example, like here in Australia, I think about 47% of diagnosed eating disorders are actually, they fall into the binge eating disorder category. And
Yeah.
I mentioned on the previous podcast that I had major issues myself for a few years because of dieting down for bodybuilding shows and modeling shoots and whatnot. And then I created this really, really bad relationship with food where I was like binge eating regular. So how important is you teaching your clients self-awareness when it comes to eating disorders and relationship with food?
I mean, very important, but I think that a lot of the people that I work with are almost like too aware.
Ah,
They're picking apart every single thing that's going on in their body and they're attributing it to food.
yeah.
And it's a lot of times not about the food. Like, honestly, most of the people who come to me, most of the people who I am working with already are eating very well. And like, we'll make some minor tweaks, or like, that's usually, I think I tend to get more people who have a more complicated situation. And I do pride myself on being good at adjusting the nuances, because for most people, you don't have to get so nitty gritty with nutrition. Like, it's pretty basic. Like, if you're just eating clean whole foods, right? But for some people with really severe issues, you do have to get nitty gritty. Like, if we're trying to figure out exactly what foods they're intolerant to and it's not obvious, or even just like macro changes, like some people's bodies, some people need to have a certain type of macronutrient ratio for their mental health or physical health, whatever. But I think, like, in terms of self-awareness, it comes down to, I think a lot of people are kind of out of touch with the connection between sort of their emotions in their bodies, and instead they try and pin it onto like food in their bodies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So I think that a lot of people, they can connect like, oh, this gives me a stomach ache, or I got bloated after that. But they don't make the connection that like they were eating in a really stressed out state, or they were really stressed out that day. They were angry, they were depressed, or they can't connect that like, oh, I ate this yesterday and tomorrow I feel down, or where's my energy at? So I think it's more so building that awareness, versus like the people who I tend to see are pretty good at figuring out like, here's a physical symptom that's bothering me. I don't really generally deal with the population that most of the population just is unaware of the fact that they're constantly bloated. So
Yeah, exactly.
honestly,
Just live with it.
yeah, most people who come to me aren't in that situation. Like, they're very aware of what's going on, and
That's interesting.
they're trying to desperately figure out what it is, and it's almost like they're thinking about it so hard, and they don't realize that like
It's
for
something.
a lot of people.
Sorry.
For a lot of no, it's just for a lot of people, half the reason why they're bloated or constipated or having diarrhea or having stomach pain, it has nothing to do with the food. It's literally their emotional state.
Fascinating.
A lot of people are constantly in this sympathetic fight or flight response, which is just going to totally halt your digestive process. And also, just you're not going to be able to digest your food. You're not going to create enough stomach acid to digest the food or the enzymes. So a lot of people aren't really realizing that. Just from a baseline level for anyone, like, I think food journals are the most incredible tool to build some awareness. And like how that works is not, I don't need people to write down, I mean, you can write down amounts, I guess, if you want, but you don't need to. Just like writing down every day, everything you drank, everything that you ate, and then next to it, what's your mood and your energy? How's your digestion? How's your emotional state? And then also any supplements, and kind of lining it all out like that. Like I work with a lot of people where, everyone who works with me, you have to fill out my forms, and then you do this food journal. And my food journals, people are always like, this is very in depth. I'm like, yeah, well, trust me on this. So they fill it out for a week, and then they come to me at the appointment and they figured out half their problems themselves, because they're like, oh, well, just writing it down made me realize every time I do this, I feel this way. Or every time I feel this way, I don't digest this. Or every time I eat this food, the next day I feel foggy and fatigued. And so I just think that a food journal for anyone can be really, really helpful. And that's not tracking calories or macros, like just looking at the food, like what's going on in your body, and then putting your mood, your digestion, your energy, how much sleep you got the night before, any supplements. So many people are taking all these supplements and they have no idea why they're taking them, or they think they know why they're taking them and they don't realize how much crap is in half the supplements they're taking.
So many dodgy supplements out there, isn't there? Like with artificial sweeteners and whatnot.
Exactly. And like so many people, I mean, I see doctors putting people on pills, and they like, patients will just take them because their doctor's recommending it. And I'm like, did you look at the ingredients? Because there's milk and soy and wheat in here. And they go, oh my gosh, no way, right?
Vegetable oils. So, that's another one.
Yeah, exactly. It's just important to really like always double check everything that's going into your body. To see if there's something that you don't want to be taking. And also, I see a lot of people over supplementing all the time. So I see people on like 20 supplements. And I'm like, why are you taking 20 supplements? Like it's so many confounding variables. And at some level you have to kind of like take everything back, get down to the bare bones, and then work from there to see what's causing the issues.
So how old are you now? Because you're only relatively young, right? To experience
I'm
what you have. 23, exactly. So you've experienced so much at a young age. It's crazy, but it's just awesome that you're actually in that position now where you have qualifications within that realm as well. I noticed on your website. Gut health and stuff.
Well, yeah. So I am certified as a nutritional therapy practitioner and primal health coach.
Awesome. Yeah, and just the jump ships again. You were mentioning stress then, and this is such an important thing for people to be aware of, because it's something over the last year or so, myself, and also I've been, as a personal trainer, I've been promoting this to clients, is to when you're eating your food, just try and be aware when you're eating, just to sit down, because so many people we're in that stress state where we live in a world now where we're constantly on the go, moving from here, there, and everywhere, eating on the go. And then, I've noticed so many people, when they sit down and eat their food, they're on their phone, just constantly, whatever they're doing on their phone, just not paying any attention to, actually chewing, because chewing the food is really important as well, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is stress plays a huge part in these issues by the sounds of it, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people don't realize, digestion begins in your brain. So you shouldn't be eating unless you're in a parasympathetic rest and digest state. It's just like you said, people are just shoveling down food. They're on the go. You can't digest food like that. So it's a few things that I make everybody do is we have this talk, you sit down and meals, I want you to be calm. And, a lot of people will say no distractions, no TV or phone or whatever. I don't say that. I say you need to be honest with yourself and figure out what stresses you out and what doesn't, and eat like that. So if you notice that you're not fully present or slightly stressed, if you have your phone in front of you or the TV, then please don't engage in those while eating. But I know plenty of people who they almost feel more stressed out, myself included, if I'm just eating in silence. So for me, if I have the TV on, if I'm alone, I am I'm calmer, I guess,
Hmm.
and I'm able to be fully there. So I just want people to kind of be very present and just taking like 5 deep breaths before you eat, like deep belly breaths will automatically help put your body into that parasympathetic state. And then from there, it's like you said, chewing is one of the most important things that people overlook. Like you need to chew your food 30 times. People think I'm crazy and I'm like, no, no, no. Like, yeah, eating will take a longer time, but you will notice a huge difference in your digestion if you chew all of your food. Like when you're chewing, your food should basically be liquid once you're done chewing before you swallow. And then the other thing that helps a lot with digestion is um, like not drinking with your meals. So I don't like any of my clients to drink liquid with their meals unless they need to take some for any supplements they're taking. But even then, we want to use the minimum amount of liquid and try not to drink 15 to 30 minutes before or after the meals, just because it can really halt the digestive process and dilute your stomach acid. Um,
That was
and
such a
those are
game
just,
changer for me, by the way. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Yeah, when I stopped doing
no.
that, I used to think, why am I always, and I was definitely because I was guzzling back water whilst I was eating. It's weird how we
Mhm.
pick up those habits, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I don't
Yeah.
know why. I don't know why that became a thing, but horrible. Yeah, same for me. It's like I will not drink water with it. Those are just a few like small changes that I think can really, really help, and I
Definitely.
think the chewing is a big one. Like put your fork down in between bites because I think people like, I don't know why everyone feels like they're on a race to
Mm.
eat. I'm like, calm down,
Yeah, it's
man.
not going to run away from you. We've
Exactly.
got more food available to us than any other time in history, so I wouldn't panic.
I know.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Now, I was going to
Maybe.
say the other thing you mentioned then about eating in front of the TV as well, because I had a binge eating, sorry, an eating, a woman who specialized in eating disorders on my podcast before, and she was saying that, and I never really thought of that until she mentioned it, and I thought to myself, wow, like, actually, I would say 90%, if I'm in the house, like, most of the time, if I overeat, I'm sat in front of the TV, and ever since I've stopped doing that or at least reduced it, I definitely it doesn't even, you're more mindless about it when you're in front of the TV, right? So it's like,
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of people, it's what you said. It's like they're not being present and they're focused on the TV and just kind of like mindlessly eating and not even
mm,
thinking about the food. But I think the big part of it is like we've built these associations. Like
yes, that's
I
right.
think about going to the movies, right?
Yeah, I
People
know,
just
that's a big one.
associate the movies with like popcorn and a soda or a slushie, or like candy. Like that's just the association. Like we're gonna go to the movies and have snacks, or like
Yeah.
road trips and snacks. Like we've just made up these associations that don't really require it. And I think that, like for me, I definitely notice that as well. Like, if I realized that I was the same way. Like anytime I was in front of the TV, I just felt this urge to eat for no reason. And I think part of that is the association. Part of it is like if you're watching TV late at night and you're being exposed to blue light and it's disrupting your circadian rhythm and making you want to eat because your brain is like, it's daytime, it's daytime. All of those different things. But then I went through a period where I like actively was like, I'm going to break this association. And now it's nice because it's like, I mean, I went to the movies yesterday and I didn't have a snack. Like I just went to the movies, and brought like tea, or like now I can watch TV and I don't think about I don't think about I need a snack right now. So it's definitely possible to break the association, but I think, um, the first thing is becoming aware of it because, different people have different quote triggers to what's going to cause them to maybe, binge eat. So recognizing that, or like a lot of that is with stress as well. Like a lot of people, and that's what I did too. It's like you deal with your stress, you're just eating your feelings,
Mm,
and hoping it'll go away. Or like, when people don't feel full in their lives, for
mm,
instance, if they don't feel a sense of purpose or satisfaction, they will try and fill that with food.
yeah.
And those are just a few of the, other reasons that people are often binging. So breaking those associations can help a lot.
Yeah, and that's what I explain to people is And actually, people laugh at me when I say it, but they've started realizing now, because it is just like a drug, really. It's like any other drug, whether it's, alcohol, hard drugs, whatever. A lot of people do use food as a drug, like it's a form of escapism, right? So it's just being aware that, are you actually hungry as well? But I was going to say about the cinema as well, because I've stopped actually eating in the cinema now. I'll normally eat, a good meal before, sometimes go out and eat, and then, but when I went the other day, I just, for the first time ever, I looked around just to see how many people were eating, and I kid you not, every single person in that cinema was eating something. God. And there's nothing, I don't want to make people feel guilty about it, but it's just like, sometimes just being aware of overeating, right? But I
believe it.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to ask you one more now. We're going into the nitty gritty here. I think I'm being a bit selfish. I'm trying to pick your brains a bit. I was going to say, awesome. I was going to ask you about eating before bed, because up until about maybe 6 months ago, I used to think, it's fine, it's totally fine. But I stopped doing it. I basically stopped eating before bed because I just noticed that my energy levels weren't great. So I thought maybe I'll just try that, and definitely 100%. It's made a huge difference to maybe it must be my sleep quality, but I try not to eat within about 3 hours before bed now. Is that actually is there some truth behind that, or?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a fun topic. I like this topic because people ask me this all the time, and there was this like dieting myth, like don't eat after 7 p.m. because you'll get fat. Yeah. Okay, this is a lie, right? Like that's not true. Yeah. But there are other reasons why it can make people feel better to leave some time between eating and bed. Mm-hmm. Digestion requires a lot of energy. That's a process the body needs to focus on. And there also is an element of gravity to digestion. Like, it's not huge, but just the fact that there's an element of gravity / it requires a lot of energy for our bodies to digest our food. You would want to do the most of that work before you are asleep, because if your body needs to digest all this food, when it's also supposed to be sleeping, sleep is the time to repair the rest of the body, right? So it's kind of that's why most people, when they eat before, too late or too close to bed, they'll wake up feeling pretty groggy and they don't feel that well, because you didn't get that good night's sleep because your body was so busy trying to digest, and the process was even harder because you were laying down horizontally rather than vertically. Even with cases of, are you familiar with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO?
Yep, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so even there's a correlation between late night eating and SIBO. And the hypothesis behind that is because it's if you're eating and you're laying straight down, the food isn't moving through the digestive tract as quickly, and so it can stay up in the small intestine and ferment.
Wow.
Yeah, so they found that people who are more prone to SIBO also tend to be people who eat closer to bed. Obviously, it's not a causation thing. Don't think if you eat before bed
correlation,
you're going to get SIBO,
correlation kind of thing, yeah?
Correlation. It's just interesting to take that into consideration. The other thing, though, is that I was actually just speaking with somebody else about that. When we talk about the circadian rhythm and getting back into the natural circadian rhythm and aligning that, actually, we think about light and exercise as being the main methods of entraining the circadian rhythm, right? You've heard of this.
Yep.
But actually, the strongest way to reset your circadian rhythm is by eating at certain times. So that's the most recent research is basically the time you're eating is a stronger signal to the brain of what your circadian rhythm should be than even light or exercise. So one of the best ways to reset your circadian rhythm is to not eat after dinner, and to leave a few hours between dinner and bed. Okay, this being said, so obviously, there is definitely something to that, but I also deal with a population, obviously you're not struggling with this, but I deal with a population, I have a lot of women who have eating disorders, and a lot of people who are maybe underweight, or people who have been dieting for too long and are kind of getting their hunger signals back on track, and people with hormonal imbalances. Mm-hmm. And my thing is, I don't want it to become a regular pattern to always be eating right before bed, but I also don't want people to freak out if they get hungry before bed, and because people think, oh, I can't eat before bed. I think it's worse to go to bed feeling physically hungry. than to eat, right before, like you eat something small before bed, and you're fine. They're also they're smarter choices. Like there's a difference between eating just something small versus a whole meal right before you go to sleep, right? So,
Mm.
if I have a lot of women, for instance, who tell me like I'm really hungry before bed, like I don't know what to do because I know I shouldn't eat right before, and I'm like, well, if you're really hungry, like you're very hungry, you should eat something before bed, and then that's fine. But like then let's not make that a pattern. The next day, eat more during the day so that you're
Yeah.
not hungry right before bed. So I don't want to scare people into like if you are like very hungry before bed, that's also not good either, because if you're very hungry and you just ignore that, you're leaving your body in the sympathetic state. It's very stressed out, and your body, when it's like that, can't repair during the night. And you also will probably wake up during the night and have disrupted sleep, because I also see a lot of people who cannot sleep all the way through the night. And that is a problem. If you aren't sleeping through the night, this means that your blood sugar is dysregulated, your cortisol is dysregulated. I see this a lot with people who don't eat enough the day before. They can't sleep through the night. So there's that too. So I would rather you eat something before bed and then be able to sleep straight 8 hours straight than go to bed hungry and then be waking up multiple times during the night.
Mm. Oh, thanks very much. There was some great knowledge bombs there. I was just going to ask you about, in relation to exercise, you said you were overtraining before, and I'm kind of assuming that you're probably overdoing like cardio and intense style training. But also, I listened to one of your more recent episodes on the Mind Pump media, and I think you've started lifting weights now, right? Which is something I'm all for. Obviously, in where I'm at now, I've been lifting weights for probably about 17 years, and it's very, very important for overall health, as well as people who want to look better aesthetically. So have you noticed a difference in terms of changing the way you train, when it comes to lifting weights? Have you noticed a difference in terms of your metabolism, I don't know, your hormones, your physique?
Well, so actually, that's not what happened, because when I was overtraining, I was lifting weights. So
Okay. Well, I'm wrong.
I never really went through a cardio bunny stage. Like I was lifting weights, then I would do cardio like twice a week. But the majority of my training, like I was lifting weights 4 times a week. And then on 2 days, I would do cardio.
I see.
Yeah, and it was just too much for my body. And I think now, like my exercise routine at the time, probably for certain people, like I'm sure plenty of people do the exact same thing, or if not way more, and they're fine. But like for my body at the time, when I was not digesting food, it was way too much, and my adrenals, it was way too much on my body. But what I had changed is, I was doing more of a split type thing, and now I'm more full body ish.
Yeah,
and also the Mind Pump guys, I never was somebody who lifted super heavy. Like I'd say I was lifting like moderately heavy weights, but I used dumbbells. I never used a barbell. And then recently, I still work out from home. But the Mind Pump guys, they like got me to start lifting some actually heavier weights.
Strength training.
Yeah, for me, it's like I did their anabolic program.
Yeah, it's the best program ever. That was the first one of their programs I done. Game changer.
Yeah, so I had done Anywhere before that and loved it. And then I went into anabolic, and like I bought some more weights to put on my plates, and I adjusted it to be done with dumbbells, but just was like really loading up with my dumbbells. Like I bought like 300 pounds worth of weight plates.
Nice.
And yeah, so I did that, and that was my first time ever like lifting heavier. For me it was heavy, and I put on a lot of muscle for sure. Like I definitely got very muscular.
Yeah.
So it was, I have always been someone who can eat a lot of food, and like my appetite was raging. I told Sal, I was like, I can't keep up with how much food I have to eat. Like it's so, but I definitely put on a lot of muscle. But just even kind of before that, like at the very, very beginning when I started resistance training, like So I kind of came from a place where I didn't know how to exercise. Like my whole life I was just in sports, right? And then I was in
Hmm.
college and I was like, all right, how does a normal person exercise without a sport? Um, and I started like, I would run and then go on the elliptical. Like I did that for like maybe 2 months and I just hated it. And then pretty quickly, my cousin introduced me to like, he's like, you need to like lift some weights, like use some dumbbells, you know. And so he kind of taught me how to do that. And it was crazy to me
Mm.
how quickly my body changed shape. Like I put on weight, but I lost so much size and I
Yeah.
was falling out of all my clothes and I was seeing muscle definition and like it was insane to me. I remember like within a month. And I felt like I was like, this is too good to be true. I'm working out and like I was spending half the time working out, right? I had gone from like, I would do like the elliptical for an hour to like lifting weights for like 20 to 30 minutes. And I was I was getting way thinner. I was getting more toned. I felt stronger. I looked a lot better and I felt way more confident. Um, and yeah, ever since that, I'm like, I mean, I'll never go back to doing cardio.
Exactly. There's absolutely no form of training which is, more beneficial than weight training, obviously done
Yeah.
properly, for your metabolism and for everything, like bone density. Even the new studies coming out are saying that resistance training is actually more beneficial for the heart. Yeah, so that's really interesting. But yeah, it's when you get those results, then you kind of never look back. Then, right? You just
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I mean, I'm all about efficiency and
definitely.
especially with the bone density, honestly, that's like the main driver for me is like women out there, like if you are not doing some type of strength training and I mean, I'm different, Sal and Adam and Justin are like like they're all about lifting heavy. I'm not like that with my clients, but I'm
Yeah,
just like, you have to resistance train in some form. So
exactly.
if you're doing body weight exercises, that's totally fine. Like, or like lighter dumbbell, like just do something that's challenging you because it's relative for everybody, right? Like,
That's right.
obviously, what's lifting heavy for you is gonna be way more than me.
Yeah.
But like it's relative, but as long as you are like challenging your muscles and like doing some type of resistance training, it's so important, especially for women, especially with so many women having had a history of like being on the birth control pill.
Oh
Um,
yeah, for sure.
we just got to look out for our bone density. So I am all about that. And I see so many people with amenorrhea.
Yeah.
So many women haven't had their periods, and I'm sure you see that a lot,
Oh yeah, I've
especially,
dealt with loads. Yeah, especially
yeah,
people
in
who've
the
competed and
fitness.
done
Yeah.
bodybuilding. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's like you gotta do everything you can to protect your bone health. So that is a key thing there. So I'm a
100%.
huge fan of resistance training.
Great stuff. Yeah, so I'll just fire a few quick questions at you now just to wrap this up. I was just going to ask you about like how do you define what does a balanced lifestyle look like to you? Because I know everyone has a different perspective, but what I know it's again a bit of a broad question, but yeah, what does a balanced lifestyle look like to you?
I mean, I think it's really, God, the term balance is so
I
interesting to
know
me,
it is
right?
because there's no such thing as perfect balance, right? But that's what we're striving for.
Yeah, but it is, and that's gonna look different for everybody. But I think
Definitely.
looking at the different aspects of your life and like making sure that each cup is filled a little. It's going to be different for every person. Like, for me, it's like we have health, nutrition, fitness, like that side, like making sure you're taking care of yourself and your health. And what is taking care of yourself is going to be different depending who you are, right? So
Yeah.
like for me, I know I'm eating well, I'm exercising regularly, I'm going on walks, I'm getting sunlight, those types of things, prioritizing that, prioritizing my sleep is a huge one. Like my life feels very out of balance if I'm not sleeping enough.
Definitely the
That's something
same.
I've struggled with recently a lot, like feeling very out of balance. And I know so much of it is because I was just not getting enough sleep. And it's like recently I told myself, I said, I am getting 8 hours of sleep no matter what. Like if I go to bed too late, then too bad. I guess I got to sleep in and I'm going to miss whatever's in the morning. Like I have to get in my sleep.
Same.
Um, so focusing on that, but then also making sure that with work, for instance, like work needs to be very fulfilling and I need to feel like I have a purpose and I want to be excited. And if I ever feel like I don't want to do work today, then I'm not doing the right thing.
Mm.
So that's another piece. And then I think the other piece is like the relationships And so that's like multifaceted. That means relationships with other people and yourself. And I think for me, it's like I need to make sure I need to make sure I'm spending time with people and not being too much of a workaholic. And then also making sure that I'm choosing to spend my time with people who really do leave me feeling rejuvenated and happier after. Like I want to feel better after I'm with somebody. And so making sure I'm getting in that social time. And then kind of related to that is this whole technology piece that I think a lot of people just kind of want to skim over. But
glad you mentioned that, because I always talk about this.
Yeah, it's huge. And like this is something that I battle with all the time, and I'm still figuring this out. I don't know at all. I kind of feel like we're all screwed at some level. Also, yeah, it's like it's really hard, especially when it's, so much of your business is online, and then all of our social interactions are online, and Instagram, emails, texts, like calls. I feel like I'm constantly being inundated with this technology, and I'm like, this feels out of balance because I just feel like the whole life is on a screen, right? My whole business is online, but also I don't know yet how to navigate that. I know for me, like I've made shifts in the right direction, but I don't think I have it totally figured out. I know like having set hours with where I do/don't use the phone, I do/don't use the computer, like only checking my email at certain times. With the phone, I just discovered this awesome, you can set, like if you have an iPhone, you can set it's like a do not disturb for when you're driving.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that. It's in the settings, but basically when you're driving, you can put this thing on that sends people a message automatically that says like, sorry, I'm driving right now.
Really?
I will answer you later, right? But what you can do is you can go in and edit the message. And so what I've done is I've edited the message. So I don't use it when I'm driving. I mean, I guess I could, but I just use it when I'm like trying to be focused. So I press this little button on my iPhone. It's a car. And when that goes on, my phone goes on airplane mode. Like I don't receive any incoming messages, and anybody who texts me during that time will get an automatic text message back from me. And I've literally edited the message to say something along the lines of, sorry, right now I'm focused on my work, or I'm spending time with somebody who's important to me. I will get back to you during my allotted text response time. Like
that's great. That's great.
Just setting boundaries, like setting boundaries is really, really important. And so many of us don't. And I think that people, with texts, for instance, or emails, we don't think of it this way, but how is it any different than, imagine there are two people having a conversation and you just walk up to them and interrupt and say, hey, what are you doing? Like you would never do that in real life.
Yeah,
but yet
distractions constantly.
Yeah, we do that all day long with the text. It's like maybe I'm doing something and then I get a message, hey, what are you doing? Like, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, like all these questions. And it really is a distraction and an interruption. And I think a lot of us, without realizing it, have learned to feel a little bit too entitled to other people's time, like myself included. Like, every time I shoot a text message, I'm not thinking about what is this person doing right now? Is this going to disrupt them? I don't, and I need to, right? Like, I think a lot of us are like that. So I think just learning to draw more boundaries in terms of the technology, and a lot of that is just on ourselves. Like, it's hard for us to draw limits, but it's really important. So I think having all of those different factors, kind of just like doing what you can for each of those is really important for me to feel balanced.
100%. It's like a big experiment, and then like there's going to be some long-term repercussions if you don't kind of monitor that. That's for sure. So
yeah, exactly.
that was you put that really well. Appreciate that. So yeah, just one or two more things now. I think you kind of cleared this one up. I'm just going to say, if you have like one or two sentences which could help people achieve their like health and physique goals, what would it be? But then I realized that actually you specialize in mainly in kind of like gut health and eating disorders. But I don't know. Do you reckon you could answer that question? Or
I would say people need to focus on their gut health and focus on reducing their stress.
Awesome. That's perfect. Yeah, that literally sums everything up. So I guess that leaves us with where can listeners find you on socials or whatnot?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, which is ChristinaRiceWellness.com. I'm on Instagram at Christina Rice Wellness, and my podcast is called Wellness Realness, and that's on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places.
Amazing. I'll share all that in the description on the podcast anyway, once it's released, which will
Awesome.
be, yeah, will be very soon. So I really, really appreciate your time, because I know it's coming towards the end of your day there now. And yeah, I really, really
Yeah.
appreciate because your time's very valuable. Yeah, thanks very much, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me on. I had so much fun chatting with you, so I really appreciate you inviting me.
What's that? Sorry, what was the last thing you said? You broke up a tiny bit.
Oh, I
Thank
said
you for
I
having
really
me.
appreciate you. Yeah, I really appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you. Honestly, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and I know this is going to benefit lots of the audience. So thanks again, Christina.
Yes, I hope it helps a lot of people. I loved this chat.
Yeah, it was really, really. I wish I had my notepad out. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this and get the notepad out, make some notes.